Right, 3, 2. None of you start lagging or pretend to be lagging, by the way, either. Yeah? Right, 3, 2. Hello. Welcome to That Mill podcast. My name's Omer. Joining me today, I've got Ben. Hello, mate. You good?
Evening, chaps. How are we doing?
Very well, thank you. We've both got the giggles here, and I'm sure Stephen will too. We've just tried to do a show with Tom, a Cardiff fan, to give you like the lowdown of Cardiff City. He didn't really make it, did he, Ben? Unfortunately, but you know, we tried.
Gonna go, mate. It's that dial-up they've still got in Wales. That's
it. Yeah, the sheep's on the treadmill trying to get it going. It's not getting fast enough for it to get it going for him.
Wasn't having it, poor bloke.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for joining me, mate, and look forward to doing the show with you. Obviously, first time doing the show together, that should be good. And also, Stephen's back. Hello, mate. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. As I say, I forgot what Ben looked like. It's been a while since we've seen his face on the pod. So looking forward to the show with you guys. It's the first time the three of us are together.
Definitely. I think as Mickey coined it to me on the phone, I just spoke to him. He was like, "You three are good football minds. You'll get on the three of you together." I was like, "All right, cool." Because Mickey steers it a lot, but you know he compensates for it there. But yeah, I mean it's a bit deja vu because this is the point where I brought in Tom previously. Listeners are gonna have no idea what this means, but we'll crack on anyway. Ben, you weren't with us the other night, mate. But obviously Saturday's game just gone. We were obviously the preview Saturday coming up, but obviously defeat for us at Middlesbrough. Just a brief synopsis of what you made of it, mate, on Saturday. Obviously, a defeat for us there. A tough one to take, but, you know, I think I kind of summed up the other night of, you know, I didn't really expect us to get much from it up there. I don't know what you thought going into it, and obviously after the game, mate.
Yeah, I didn't think we would get anything. I said to my dad we'd have taken a point before the game. I didn't expect us to win, to be perfectly honest. We've struggled away. I know we battered Watford, and it's probably the best away performance that I've seen probably since Forest, when Smudge got his hat-trick. Probably better than that, actually. But yeah, didn't expect us to get anything at Borough. They seem to be doing well under Carrick, don't they? So yeah, didn't really expect anything. So I wasn't surprised from all accounts, all reports that I read online for the 500 that did go up there. It seemed like it was a bit of a lacklustre game. Obviously watched the highlights. Yeah, just frustrating, really. But yeah, a result that I expected.
I think how I summed up anyway the other night, I was like, I kind of didn't expect a lot. And I think Saturday coming up for me anyway this is the crunch one where like I think we've got to go there and get a result on Saturday at Cardiff and kind of, you know, I suppose bring back a bit of optimism ahead of Saturday. I feel like, mate.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a game. If we've got any aspirations now for the rest of the year to be getting in the top six, we have to win. I had a little look at our record against Cardiff and in Cardiff, and it doesn't fill me with much confidence. I'm not going to lie. We haven't won in Cardiff since 2005.
Yeah.
And that was a 1-0 Danny Dicchio penalty. So, yeah, it's been a while. They haven't won a game since November. I know we had the World Cup in between that, but they also haven't won a home game since October, and that was against Rotherham. So I think we're all going to sit here and go, are you even a Millwall fan if you're expecting us to win on Saturday? Because you know what's going to happen. As we probably said on the pre-recording, new manager bounce or just a new person in their dugout. Yeah, I'm not going into it again with much confidence, but I'm a pessimistic Millwall fan. I tell you. So, yeah, record's not great in Cardiff. So, again, I'd probably take a draw. But as I said, if we've got any aspirations to make the top six, we've got to win.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, mate. I mean, we'll park Cardiff for a second. Obviously, since we've done a show on Wednesday, Stephen, there's been a bit more transfer news. Not the news we've all been hoping for, but it's, I mean, yeah, we haven't signed anyone. I've seen an article this morning from Gary Wright talking about positions. We could look for another positions on the pitch if we don't get the striker, because obviously the striker search is still ongoing. But I wanted to first talk about another departure. Besart Topoloch completed a permanent transfer to Bromley. Bit of a bizarre one. Obviously grabbed, you know, positive headlines in pre-season, didn't he? And we all was ranting and raving about him a little bit. And yeah, he's left the club on a permanent deal to Bromley. Strange one, right?
Very, to be honest. I was at Dartford pre-season, which seems so long ago, obviously with the World Cup and whatnot. And he played, I think he played about 60, 70 minutes and looked quite good. Looked quite sharp on the ball, an attack-minded fullback, something that we probably, again, at the start of the season, in a 5-back, probably would have been a role that it would have been suited for him to come in had we have had injuries and problems. But it just seems very strange. Someone tweeted me earlier about, is it lack of funds or lack of ambition or players not wanting to join us coming in the door? It just seems that we must be absolutely scrapping for every pound note at the club if we're accepting bids for youngsters, because he can't be on much of a wage, to be honest. We're probably not we're probably paying whatever half of whatever he was on. So unless the books are really heading in the wrong direction, it just seems a bit of a strange move to let a promising defender go. And considering Murray Wallace has had his difficulties this year on the left hand side, Scott Malone seems to have injury problems. He's not been around as much in the last couple of weeks. Seems very strange to let left back leave.
I agree with you. I think I was also at the Dartford game, and I agree. Like, you can get carried away in pre-season. You can play against the Conference South side, but he looked very composed, good on the ball, got forward, seemed energetic. He didn't remind me of a marauding left back, but he showed a bit of talent and a bit of quality about him. And do you get behind that theory then? I saw it as well, the finances being a questionable thing. Obviously, we're rumoured to have sold Alafe for £100,000. I read today. It was, again, someone's like passing on, saying it's on good authority. Do you think we're kind of scrapping at the barrel a bit, trying to get some cash back? Because, again, the rumour is, obviously, with the elite business for Hummel, the reseller going under, we've lost out on some significant funds there too. Do you think there's legs to that? What's your kind of opinion on that?
I do. I think the mistake as well with the memorial stones that come out, which only come out because supporters were sort of venting on social media. It seems a few of the fans started to have a little bit of a moan, and then something was kind of done about it, and a statement was made by the club. They lost a lot of money. Obviously, I think it was it was Black Friday, but they called it Blue Friday, didn't they? Obviously for the club, and they didn't have a club shop. So they lost out on a lot of money. I think there was a game where the shop wasn't open for a home game as well. There are I think there are problems. I mean, the big one for me is Afobe's wages, because Alafi wouldn't have been on a lot. Hayden Muller wouldn't have been on a lot. Topoloj, obviously, we were paying part of his wages, I would assume. So they're just clearing the decks type thing. But Afobe was on big money. If we can't use that in another position, then the finances must really be taking a hit. And I'm slightly concerned that's why there's not been any transfers coming in, because we just can't afford it.
I mean, bit of a give us some positivity. Come on, Ben. Is there any positivity to take from this? Topolog's obviously gone. I guess what your thoughts on that? But come on, give us some optimism, please, mate.
Well, Jim would have seen my tweet recently about all the rumours when we were going to be getting Jamal Lowe, Noon from Exeter, and the geezer from Rotherham. And I tweeted saying, if you think we're getting all three of them, you're in cuckoo land, because it's just not happening. I also said in that tweet that we'll be lucky to get one, and I think that is going to be true. I don't even think we're going to get any of them at this rate, or anybody. The Topoloj one's just a weird one for me, because, as we say, he's a young fullback. He seems to have done well on loan. Are we really struggling that bad to have to get him off the books, or has he come to the club and said, "Look, I need to be playing first team football. I might not get that." As Rowett told him, he's not going to get that anytime soon. Obviously, we don't know those conversations, but if it is financial, it would have been a nominal fee, right, for him. He's not going to be breaking the bank. So, if it is financial reasons that we've got rid of him, that's concerning. Generally, our transfer policy at the minute it's just worrying that we haven't got anyone in, but. Again, there's that article floating around that Belson's putting in about £10 million a year of his own money just to keep the club kind of going. So, I mean, there's not much optimism here, is there? But I'm just being realistic, I think. And I think I've always come to think, again, I tweeted today saying our transfer business is getting in early, if another club's mentioned against us, we're never getting that player. I think I tweeted saying, can someone tell me the last time where another club's been mentioned in our transfer business that we've actually then got that player? We just don't seem to get them. So it is always people that are either under the radar. We do our business quietly, it seems. and we seem to get people's knockoffs. So, yeah, it's worrying. Again, if we want that top 6 push, we need bodies in the door. And I don't think now we're looking at 2 or 3 that we probably would have got it. We're probably looking at 4, 5, 6 now. And we're just not going to get that. We never get those numbers in. So, yeah, the rest of the year is going to be a struggle, I think, if we don't get a few bodies through the door.
It's a bit weird, isn't it? Like, you look at our squad now, the only player I think a lot of people agree on is George Evans is still there, but you take him away from it, you've not got many first team players left there, have you? It seems to be depleting, and quite quickly, doesn't it, Stephen? It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? And it seems to have just crept up on us. I mean, we've always naturally had smaller squads, apart from when Holloway was in charge. I feel like when we had like 40 players at one point in one season, or Lomas. Aside from that, you know, we hit the reports from the finances that Ben touched on there. You know, Berylson always puts the money into right after losses at the end of the year and takes it back as like a credited loan, but it's not really it's kind of writes the money off, so to speak, and it's like a low debt. But then with that, like, we've got £22 million wage budget now as a club, supposedly, and it's gone up progressively year on year. Have we overspent, and they're kind of, is Berylson taking the money away, or what is it? I mean, how do you feel about it? And obviously, Berylson was rumoured to be, there's American interest, isn't there? You don't know how legitimate these things are, but it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? And the squad is depleting quickly.
It's a bit of a weird one because also you've got the issues that we had obviously with Lewisham Council, with the surrounding areas and what was going to happen with that. You know, all of that talk has gone really, really quiet. They've come out and got planning permission for a sort of state of the art training ground, which needs to be funded. That doesn't just, you don't just build a training ground. You have to actually pay for it. It is very strange. And on the squad, you almost felt like at the start of the year we had a lot of options. We had a really good squad on paper, and you knew how we were going to play. You knew it was the system. You knew you had cover in various positions, and all of a sudden you're kind of looking at it going, well, if Cresswell goes, and we've got a couple of injuries. The young kids, I know they're doing a good job in the 21s and 23s, but they're going to have to develop pretty quickly, because I think they're going to have to start, a bit similar to last year, obviously, with COVID and Zach Lovelace being drafted into the first team. Last year it was a bit of a blessing in disguise, because we won 5 games in a row, which was a bit of a miracle run, let's be honest. But he was forced to play certain players because we didn't have anybody else, and it almost feels like we're going to be in the same kind of position, but this time it's our own doing. Last year he was bemoaning the injuries and saying that's what's cost us, which it probably did catch up with us, to be fair. The players were tired, but now you've got a really good chance. It's the best chance that we've had. I really don't know what the policy is at the moment. Berylson is putting in a lot of money. I think he's probably one of the best owners we could have asked for at the moment and during lockdown. There's no dispute that he's done wonders for the club, but you have to ask the question, why? Is he going to get this return on investment when the all the development happens around the ground? Is he really going to recoup the £10 million plus per year? There has to be something behind it, but I don't know if he's taken the money away. I just think players nowadays demand higher transfer fees and higher wages, and I don't think, one, we can really afford the higher wages, and 2, I don't think Rowett and our board want to rock the boat and bring in a high earner, and then some of our other players sort of get a little bit annoyed about it.
Just a couple of points to jump in on there. I think it wasn't long ago. It was start of the year when we were doing and chatting on the podcast that I think we all said, but I certainly did, that I was really delighted with the strength and depth that we seem to have across the board, and it suddenly just seems to have evaporated, and we seem like we're down to bare bones. And I don't quite know how. Was that all of us myself looking at it and probably overplaying the squad depth a bit and the quality of the side a bit? I don't know, possibly. But yeah, it just seems to have gone. And as I say, we're probably 1 or 2 injuries away from being really, really in trouble. And going back to your last point there, Stephen, in terms of Berylson, for me, you couldn't ask for a better owner, in my opinion. He runs us as well as you can, a modern day football club. But there's got to be something for him to be wanting to hang around and keep spending £10 million of his own money every year. And I don't want to say it because we don't want to go down that route, right? But if it is the grounds, the area around the ground, whatever it is, the Bermondsey development, then it seems like a logical thing for him, right? Because he's going to earn a few quid out of that.
Does the cynic say, well, would Mill be worth more money even if there's like big high-rise flats around us? I don't know.
No, I don't know. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's like, because that's a question that's got to be asked there. I mean, I've just counted the squad. So take away the 3 goalkeepers, 18 outfield players. You take away Charlie Creswell from that scenario because he's murmured to be leaving, unless there's an injury to Hutchinson or Cooper. So then you've got 3 centre-halves, 2 centre-halves if you take away Creswell. You've got, obviously, Murray Wallace has got no left back. Danny McNamara, a single right back. And then you've got George Evans in there that will probably go. I don't know. He's probably going to stick around now. Maybe he'll be a backup centre-half at this point. So that's potentially 16 outfield players. And obviously, we know we've only got Tom Bradshaw up front and Voggy and Bennett who can do a job there. But it's quite... what are we going to do there? Do you reckon, Stephen? Like, is it the loan market, or do we, like we said the other night, do we have to turn to the young players now? But does Wright want to do that? Obviously, he's given Esse a chance, but is that something that you think we could possibly do, or might have to do?
I think he's going to have no choice. As Ben just said, if we get an injury or a couple or 2 injuries or a suspension or something like that out of the blue. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the under-21s or under-23s now, they're doing a really good job. They're scoring a lot of goals. They're winning a lot of games. So I think there'd be people coming into the first team squad, young players with a bit of confidence because they're scoring goals at their own level. We all know it's a step up from playing under-23s to the Championship. But I saw a really interesting tweet from someone that said, would Bradshaw and Vogelsammer score the goals that Abdelmalik's scoring in the under-23s? He's got 14, I think, for the 23s. It is a different level of football, but why not? Why not give him a chance? I think in terms of incoming players, it's now getting to the point where I think we're looking at the loan market. We're definitely looking at the loan market because there's no way we're looking now to sign permanently. Again, I don't necessarily agree with that unless we can get those kind of, I think with Shackleton with an obligation to buy, because Chris Wood all those years ago, no obligation to buy was taken off of us. So I think we need to start looking at those options. But it is worrying. 18 outfield players, and one of them, Shackleton and Cresswell are both not ours. And again, I think you're always going to get you get sort of to March, don't you? And you get such and such is out of contract, such and such is out of contract. Are they going to stay? It seems like the last couple of years has just been rebuild onto rebuild, and with wages going up, are we going to be able to keep doing that? I don't know.
I want to talk a bit, before we go on to Cardiff, but this is a theory I've got. I feel like we've overstayed our welcome in the Championship. Obviously, we want to compete, and I want us to be in the Championship. But financially, as a club that wants to punch up there, and this is a bit of a cynic thought, but I've had it before, and I feel like we've constantly had 3 or 4 seasons, maybe 5 in the Championship, get relegated, deplete our squad, half the wage budget, and you look at the finances and it backs it up. I think we've doubled our wage bill since we've come up from League One. We're continuously trying to punch up there, but that can only go on for so long, can't it? And it's like, I suppose there needs to be a change of tact. Maybe we need to start having youngsters like Esse come through, and hopefully he plays 30 games next year, or Fleming could be a £10 million asset and we sell him on, and that can raise the funds to try and lopside that makes competitive. But I think this is the start of something where we start to see that kind of change in the recruitment drive. And with Aldo coming in, there is something in my head thinking it needs to be a change, and maybe this is the start of it, maybe.
I would agree. I definitely think the signing of Fleming was a double-edged sword. They're bringing in a real quality player that could potentially fire us to the top 6 or have that little bit of quality. But at the same time, he's 23 years old. He's clearly talented. He's the sort of player that sort of mid to low end Premier League clubs would want in their side. And he's going to demand for us a considerable transfer fee. I think Esse is another one. I would have no issue with him getting first team football from now until the end of the season. And if he starts to perform well, he's young. I don't know his nationality. I'm going to assume he's English. He said he's been at Millwall since he was 9 years old. So I'm going to assume that he's an English player. I think, is it Kieran Lewis Potter at Hull went for quite a lot of money up to Brentford, I think it was. Yeah. So why can't we be developing young players that are demanding high transfer fee? I definitely think Aldo's gone in there and probably gone. I mean, during my lifetime, we're all probably of a similar age. So during our lifetime, we've had Tim Cahill didn't go for much money. Steve Morrison, when he was in his prime, didn't go for much money. Jed Wallace went for nothing. You know, we don't bring in big money for players, and that has to change, because you can't be a successful football club or a successful business if you're not making any money. I don't like to consider football clubs to be a business, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of money that goes into it, and the owners want some kind of return. If you've got high-end assets that are going for free, something's not right there. And I think 100%. that's what's going to change. Personally, I think that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, Ben, what you've touched on there, I was a bit of a kind of a devil's advocate thought in my head of, obviously I spoke about, Mill have typically been 5 years in the Championship, maybe 5 in League One, and you normally see in the finances, you half the wage budget when you go to League One and you go again. Obviously, this is the longest we've been in the Championship for as long as I can remember. I think, 6, 7 seasons now, where we've sustained it and built on it year on year. And maybe part of me thinks, is that purely because, now we're starting to see the cash, maybe issues, or cash flows? We don't know this for sure, but we can see the finances where the losses are getting bigger and bigger. Maybe we need a change of tactics in our recruitment drive, and trying to sign these players where we can get a bit of value in the sell on, and maybe that's the start of it now. Maybe perhaps I don't know what you think about that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought for a long time that the whole recruitment process of ours needed a bit of a revamp, and Stephen just touched on a player there, but generally we seem to be terrible at buying low, selling high. And I know it sounds a lot easier said than done, but just generally we are bad at that. I don't think anyone really would have begrudged Jed leaving if we'd have got money for him. Leaving on a free was more of a kick in the teeth, because it was, in our recent time, he was our best, most important player, right? So I think that was we're just not very good at that. So it has to change somewhere. Again, just caught the back end of what you were saying, Stephen, about Fleming. I think already we've got to be looking at how much are we going to be getting for him. It's not going to be how long are we going to have him for, because let's be honest, we're not going to keep him. It's how much are we going to get for him. So, yeah, I think our whole recruitment policy needs to change. I was surprised with Aldo coming back, to be honest. I thought, again, I'm not a fan of just people going back to clubs, especially people like that. We wanted to get away from, I want to say Harris ball, that's not the right word, but we wanted to get away from that kind of style of play, right? And wanted to change it a bit. We seem to have done that with Rowett, and then getting that recruitment guy in that helped Harris so much. I mean, okay, we did get some decent signings and some long-standing members of the squad in through him, but I always think you just need to refresh it sometimes, and by making a change of direction, that's got to start with that head of recruitment, right, for me. But again, those are probably hard to come by in terms of good heads of recruitment that want to come to us and would want to work with our sort of budget. But yeah, generally, I think our recruitment system and transfer policy needs to change. We don't seem to be able to go and get a Lee Gregory or Steve Morrison now, or do we even go down that route? Do we look in the lower league to try and pick up those players? Can we even afford it? Have their values gone up because of COVID and things? So yeah, it needs to change. I don't know how it changes with a small budget, but yeah, it needs to.
I'll make you right. I think even if you think like when 2010, when Morrison goes to Norwich, if you think about, at the time I was obviously a bit younger, but I'd have thought Trotter might have been an asset, maybe, especially when he scored 10 goals in the Championship. James Henry might have been an asset who we let go free to Wolves and then actually helped them League One Championship. We've always been notoriously that sort of club, and it's definitely a shift. I think. I do think this is the start of a shift, but how that shift goes, it remains to be seen, and we're all going to find out. I mean, anything else you want to add on to that? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, just on that, I think what it is going to take for a player, someone to want one of our players now, because I made a joke about it a couple of weeks ago. I think it was on one of the spaces that if someone come in with a big bit of money for Fleming, the board's going to start getting a little bit jittery, and they're going to go, "Oh my God, we're going to have to accept it. We're going to have to accept it. Like, this is big money." But if there's rumours that Premier League clubs are perhaps looking at Danny McNamara, or if Esse can come in and have a little bit of show a little bit of promise, and Premier League clubs like to buy young players. There's clubs like Brighton and Brentford that do that quite successfully. It's going to take maybe one or two players of ours to really. Billy Mitchell is another one. I'm not saying he's someone that would go, but he's young. He's obviously going to be worth quite a bit of money because his performance levels in the Championship have been very high. It's going to take something like that to really see if they're serious about this transfer policy, because you can't just have someone come in for Fleming and go, "We'll give you 8 million," and they just bottle it and go, "Yeah, sure, we'll accept it." We have to be driving a high price for these players to set up a long-term strategy, not just panic because someone's offered us a little bit of money.
How do you act with that, though? I asked the same question, I think, a week ago on the show, and I was like, if we get, obviously, we will put our evaluations in our heads. Fleming's got 10 goals in Championship in half a season. He's got to be worth 10, 20. I've seen someone say 50. You can't quantify the value. But if you are Millwall and you've never, our record transfer fee received is Morrison, George Savile at 5 mil, isn't it? Yeah, 5. So 5 mil going up to 7. But if someone said, right, here's 10 million over 4 years for Ian Fleming, say if, for example, I don't know, West Ham's a bad example, but say if Everton get relegated, parachute payments, £10 million, we'll take your player off you next year. He's done it in the Championship. We want to take you. It takes a stern board to think, all them thoughts go through your head, don't they? I suppose, Ben. It's a hard game, isn't it, in football? And it's like, yeah, you've got to obviously have the iron hands, and I agree with Stephen there. But if someone says 10 million for Fleming right now, Millwall will get jittery, and I can understand it almost.
If we got a £10 million bid for Fleming, we'd all say we'd want double that, right?
Yeah.
As Millwall fans, we get a 10 million bid for him from an Everton getting relegated, he's gone. There's no way we're holding out for more than that, given our history, unless that changes, and I don't see it changing. We get anything close to 10 million, he's not going to be a Millwall player, I don't think. We can't, as I just said, our policy needs to change in terms of selling players, and we're a selling club, but we're absolutely awful at selling players in terms of getting the right value for them or selling them at the right time and getting the best value for them. So, yeah, if in the summer we got a £10 million bid, I would be amazed if he started the season with us next year.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you there. I think I want to wrap this part up and kind of move on to Saturday. We did have the opposition analyst of Tom with us. Do you want to pretend to be Welsh for a bit, Stephen?
Not a chance.
Pretend to be Tom for a bit. I mean, what do we know about Cardiff going into this game? Obviously, we played them earlier in the season. There's lots changed there. Morrison was the manager, wasn't he, when we played them earlier in the season, and he's been and gone. They then had another manager go in, Mark Hudson, who's also been and gone. I think we didn't play it then, didn't we, this year? And we won 2-0. What are you thinking, Stephen, ahead of Saturday? And obviously, we spoke about a bit on Tuesday, but I do think it's there's a lot of off-field stuff going on, but we need to get a bit of optimism back around the players, I think.
I think the last thing on transfers, I think it's absolutely fantastic that they've signed Romain Esse up to a long-term deal. I think that is a really bit of positive news. Someone who there was slight rumours, I think Man United were sniffing around, having a look at him. So to tie him down, really good bit of business. That's quite a good, a positive way to end transfers. If we can actually say positive about transfers. But
in on the transfer piece before we go on to Cardiff.
Yeah, go for it.
Dad has been itching for me to say on the pods. Do you think there's any thought or truth behind the fact we might not be going all out for this top 6 push, that Rowett could be off in the summer?
It comes around every year and it happens, doesn't it? I think if Rowett gets the job he hopes for, a bit close to home in the Midlands, a club with a decent budget, say for example like West Brom, hypothetically, that sort of club, that size, that stature, I do think he goes personally. And I do believe the rumours that he was looking to leave in last summer, but I think he's got a good rep now, isn't he? Like externally away from Millwall. Amongst us, it's probably a 50-50 split. That surprises people when I appear on other shows, but and I mentioned that, but I think he goes if the dream offer comes in for him personally. But
exactly what my dad he keeps saying to me is like, we don't love him enough. He's doing a great job. We're overachieving. We don't love him enough as a fan base, and we don't, right?
No.
It is 50-50 split, which again, you say other clubs probably look at that and go, how?
I'm not going to get so surprised by that, honestly. And it's hard to quantify because even I'm 50-50 with him sometimes, and I can't help. You see the results and performance, and you're like, or like the table, the results of the last 3 years that he's been here, and you're like remarkable. But like it's not that. I think it also plays a part in cost of living crisis and stuff. But I think our away followings have gone down. I think also because of Rowett's football and the style of play. I think a lot of people have fallen out of love with Millwall since COVID, and obviously Rowett's you know, the results are there, but I do think that split is clear to see in that sort of thing when you look at the away followings. I don't know
But
what you
just
think,
on the transfer policy, do you think they might? Do you think the club know that or are thinking not going to give him as much money as he wants or needs because he's off in the summer or might be off, or he's giving him an indication that if he gets a better job that he's off? Don't know, just something to chuck out there and think about. Well, after my dad said it, I was kind of like, yeah, it might be a bit true.
Yeah, it's always there, the thought.
I can see, to be honest with you, and I would absolutely have no issue with it to a certain extent, that if Rowett's not backed in the transfer window, I could see him turning around and going, I'm not doing that. What's the point? What's the point in me getting us to a point where we're last year, and I bang on about this at home games, a couple of people I go with, last year we beat Coventry Christmas week, and we were 1 point off the playoffs. And we had a depleted squad, and we had back then we had the best opportunity to get into the playoffs, and he wasn't back. So I think we got Ollie Burke and Luke Freeman in on the last couple of days of the transfer window. This year, New Year's Day, we moved to 4th. Admittedly, the next day we were down to 6th, but still in the top 6. And it's the same thing over and over again. How long does a manager put up with not being backed and doing? You know, football's a results business, and I've often said, you know, I've never seen Millwall in the top flight, unfortunately. My dad always talks about it, and other supporters always talk about it. If Rowett won every game 1-0 and we played the most boring football known to mankind, I wouldn't care less because we're winning every game 1-0 and get us into the top flight. The fact that we're not doing that, but he is still giving us a chance, you know, we've talked about transfers a lot, but if he doesn't get backed, I wouldn't blame him going off to another job. I really wouldn't blame him. He gets slagged off when we lose. He gets slagged off if we don't, even if we win, but we play defensive football. He's got us, you know, just outside the top 6. If the West Brom job or, I don't know, Aston Villa, maybe, I know that's a bit more far-fetched because of how they're in the Premier League, but a job like that come up and they wanted him, I wouldn't blame him at all for going. Absolutely wouldn't blame him at all.
It's better the devil you know, isn't it? A little bit sometimes, I think.
Yeah,
if like, you know, and that's it. Like you can't knock it because the results and performances, like the league finishes, speak for itself, don't it? I suppose. Anything else you boys want to add before we talk about Cardiff? We going to Cardiff? Come on, let's do Cardiff.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, I did ask you. What do you think about Saturday? And what are you hoping for?
I think Cardiff. I mean, they've got a few off the field issues. Obviously, another manager. They're looking for another manager. Third one. It'll be a third permanent appointment when they decide to appoint one. Whenever that'll be. I highly doubt that'll be before Saturday. So it's going to be a caretaker manager. In the dugout, they've still got. I saw an article come out that the Emiliano Sala. There's an article surfaced that they tried to take out life insurance the day after the incident, which has obviously not gone down very well in the footballing world. Rightly so, not gone down very well in the footballing world. They obviously took an absolute hammering in the FA Cup last night. Again, I know it's against Premier League opposition, but I think Leeds absolutely steamrolled. I think it was last I saw. I didn't actually see the final result. Leeds had put 5 past them. So
5-2 full time.
Yeah,
they scored 2 towards the end in the end, Cardiff. But yeah, if it was 5-0 at one point.
So a couple of supporters I see on Twitter, I follow on Twitter, are quite negative. They're going through a little bit of a rough patch and the transfer ban and all kinds of things, which all just screams that they're going to win 1-0 on Saturday because that's just what happens to us when we go to those kind of places. But I think the Sheffield United FA Cup game, I went to that and was very disappointed. I thought that it was a clear, to me, it was clear that Rowett and the players thought, nah, sod this, we're going to concentrate on the league. So I expected us to go to Middlesbrough and put in a performance. Not necessarily win the game, but go there and show a little bit of intent. And we didn't do that. So now I am fully expecting us to go there after 2 lackluster performances, 2 defeats, to go there and show some real ambition and show some forward thinking football. I don't expect us to play like Brazil. I don't expect us to be knocking it around for fun, but I expect us to certainly have a go against a side that clearly have problems and are there for the taking.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think I echo that completely. That's what I'll be hoping for on Saturday, travelling down there anyway. It's a weird one when you look at their squad. Ben, I'll come to you on this one. Like you look at Cardiff squad, I see Steve Morris in the blueprint. Firstly, a lot with the signings, the type of signings he signed there, like hard-working players, but also they're good Championship players. Like we've not seen a lot of these players, but I think of, obviously Ojo's there. That's an interest. That'll be an interesting one on Saturday. But you've got Joe Walls in there. You've got Ryan Wintle. I like their centre half Curtis Nelson. I've seen him play a lot. Perry Enge, the right back, Callum O'Dowda. Like they're players that have knocked around for a while, but there's no real standouts there, which is probably maybe the lack of match winners there for them, I suppose, a little bit there. I'll think about it, Ben. But they're not a pushover side, but obviously the off-field stuff seems to be taking its toll at Cardiff, I think, a little bit. But be an interesting one going into it. And I know obviously you came in with the stats before, at the start of the show, but be interesting to see what happens, I think, going to Cardiff.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on their off-the-field problems. I mean, we're just talking there about us looking at transfers and all that sort of thing. It could always be worse, right? And I think that'd be a basic point of Cardiff. They seem to be in a far worse position than us and have been for a while. Again, their squad, just had a look then when you mentioned it. I mean, they're all just solid Championship players, right? Obviously, Marlon's there, etc. And as you mentioned, Ojo's there, and Romain Sawyer's, people like that. We've got the young Welsh lads at Colwell. Is he on loan from Chelsea or somewhere?
I think he's at Brighton, Levi Colwell, but there's another Colwell, I think, there's there. Who's, again, a good player. I've seen these playing. They're decent players, ain't they?
Yeah, decent. So I'd imagine big money, some of them as well, which is, again, we talk about. I mean, I doubt he'll be on a few quid, I'd imagine, people like that. Just a weird one for them. As you say, they scream Steve Morrison sort of blueprint there. It's going to be a hard game. Looking at it, we're struggling for a little bit of confidence. 2 poor performances, as we mentioned. Again, looking at their results kind of since the World Cup, they don't seem to be scoring many goals at all. If it was 0-0 on Saturday, would I be surprised? Absolutely not. Again, said it at the top of the show, but if we've got any aspirations of knocking on that top 6 floor, then we've got to be winning. So I'm hoping we go there with attacking mentality and try and impose the game to them. If we play anything like near the levels we did against Watford, we should win. I think that's been the biggest key. And again, we talk about the Rowett thing. It's just been our consistency. And it has been for a long time. We seem to put in a performance against Watford where I look at it and go, there wouldn't be any teams in the league that could live with the intensity we played at. We were absolutely top draw. And then we put in 2 minging performances and just look naff. It really depends on what Millwall turn up, I think. I don't think it's much to do with them. It's if we play our game and perform, we'll beat them. But are we starting to get some tired legs? Are we going to start having to play the same players all the time? Again, we mentioned the squad and the thinness we're getting there now. So, as I say, if we go there and perform, we'll win. But that's a big if at the minute.
I like the logic there, and I think you're probably bang on there with your assessment. I think I gave you credit for the stats and you mentioned it, but I think that was in the first show we tried to do with our opposition. But do you have them ready to list off again? Was it? We've not won this since 2005. We spoke about it on the show on Tuesday, that one. I know Dicko scored. I remember hearing that one. What else you got for us? I think it was in the last show we tried to do, the one that didn't exist.
One with the Cardiff fan on, which will be on people at the end of the year, so we'll get it on that. Won our last 2 against them, albeit at home. We've not won in Cardiff since 2005, which was a 1-0 Danny Dicko penalty. They haven't won a game since November and haven't won a home game since October, which was against Rotherham. So, as I said earlier, if you're a Millwall fan and think we're going to go there and win, are you actually a Millwall fan with those stats? Because everything's pointing at them beating us on Saturday. The turmoil, all the stuff about what's his name, the geezer that was in the plane crash. They're getting some stick for that. They're in bad form. It's just screaming a 1-0 Cardiff win, isn't it?
Agree, Stephen? I mean, it's the inner Millwall in us, isn't it? You can't shake it.
No, I think you follow them for so long and you have hope, and then all of a sudden you just realise that you don't have hope. Don't have hope. Don't have expectations, and just try and take each game as it comes.
It kills you, right?
It is. I mean, look, I think we've been quite negative on the show, and I think at the moment there is a little bit of a negative vibe around the club. There's a lot of things that, even down to the point of having to train at the ground, because obviously the training ground's been the ice and rain and whatnot. It just seems at the moment it just seems we're going through a bit of a mid-season sort of lull as a club. Saturday is a really good opportunity to right some wrongs, in the sense of, we do struggle against teams at the bottom of the league typically. So go there, try and put that to bed. Get that kind of monkey off the back and go there and try and get a result. After Saturday, which I believe is the 21st, I think the transfer window closes on. It's not the last day in January, is it? I think it's the 3rd of February. It's the Friday. They've moved it to the Friday for some, for some reason. So they'll have just under 2 weeks, because obviously the Burnley game has been rearranged for the following week. So they'll have 2 weeks to rest, recover, hopefully get back the new lad over from Ireland, hopefully get back a couple of Tyler Bury and other players that might have a knock, and then 2 weeks to bring in a couple of players. We do get caught up, and we that are you even Mill if you think we're going to go there and get a result on Saturday is bang on. It is, you so many people say it on social media. It's ridiculous, really. Everybody knows the score with us, but I think Saturday really is a good opportunity for us, and it's a good opportunity for players like Bradshaw, going back to Wales. I think it's a good opportunity for players like George Honeyman, Callum Stiles, to go there and, like the Rotherham game a couple of weeks ago, really go there and try and impose yourself on a weaker side in the division and show why we are where we are in the league, and try and instill some confidence in the travelling fans and obviously those that can't make the game on Saturday.
Definitely. I think you're right there, because I did say this the other night, I think we do better against the teams that are the less opposition this year. Typically, it feels like, not always been the case, but it does feel this year, we can go in there and impose ourselves. The likes of Fleming step up in them sort of games. I wanted to say, because you obviously mentioned the gap as well, the next 4 games, if you're a Millwall side that's hungry and wants this, you've got Cardiff away, Sunderland at home. I expect a decent crowd there, decent gate, a London derby at QPR, then Coventry away midweek. 4 games that, if you really want to make a go of it this season, because when you look at the games afterwards, Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, Stoke away is always a tricky place for us, Luton away, Norwich at home. Like that's a tough run afterwards. I think the next 4 games, I feel like they're quite key to maybe shaping our season a little bit, Ben. The season's long-winded and still a long way to go, but it's a big set of games coming up, I think, especially the first 4 there, when I said that.
Yeah, that run after that, I'm not looking forward to too much. Again, I think I've said it on previous shows, we're going to be looking back at certain results already this year and going, we really needed to win. Their Hull screams to me one, Birmingham screams to me, I think I've said it a couple of times. We have to win Saturday now. Just reading those fixtures out and knock on the next 10 games, for me, we just have to win. At the minute, I don't go into... We just don't know what we're going to get, right? And as I just said, if we go and play our game, then we will give most teams a game, and I'd probably expect us to beat most teams, but we just don't know what we're going to get at the minute. We're so inconsistent. If we get a couple of injuries, but the next 4 games, I mean, even Coventry in that, they're a good side. I've got a Coventry fan that I speak to from work. They're thin on the ground in terms of bodies as well. I don't think they'll be getting anyone in. So if they lose a couple of players, then we might have a squeak there. But they're a decent side. QPR, London derby, don't know. As you say, Sunderland, they're going to have a massive following at the Den, probably set out the relegation like they always do. So that's going to be a big game. So even in the next 4, it's tough.
Big one.
We have to win Saturday. Now we have to win Saturday.
Stephen, what do you make of that? I think what my point is there, like, I pick out QPR away, London derby, Coventry normally take 1,000 plus there. These are big games now, isn't it? Like, and then afterwards, like I said, the 6 coming up after that, Sheffield United, Burnley, Norwich, they're in there as well. Tough games, but time for us to step up, really, if the players really want it, I feel like.
And I say this all the time, and one of my good friends is a Norwich fan, and I often say that to be the best, you got to beat the best, and if you want to make the top 6, you've got to be winning some of these games. We had a horrendous run at the start of the season. We played Burnley away, Norwich away, Sheffield United away. Yet we lost them all. Most teams are going to go to those grounds and lose, so there's no shame in that. But the fact that they have to come to us gives me a little bit more hope in those fixtures. Yeah, okay. We might be thin on the ground, but that does give me a little bit more hope. But I think QPR have dropped way off the pace, especially since losing their manager. That he's come out and said, I want to stay, loyalty, etc., etc. He's now gone, and they seem to have fallen apart. Sunderland, they're riding the wave from promotion, aren't they? But they lost Ellis Sims, and he was a big player for them. A central striker that it's not. As we know, it's not easy to replace. But Saturday's massive. It's a game we do have to be winning to have some aspirations. But just to end, because it is ending January, isn't it? There's no other fixtures. The next game's in February. End January on a little bit of a high. There's always, it just seems to be around the club a lot of negativity at the moment. And if you can win a game, we might be expected. We might be slight favourites because of where we are in the league. But go away from home, win a game, and put some confidence back into the supporters. I think the players should be relishing Sunderland bringing a decent crowd. They should be relishing Sheffield United bringing a decent crowd. Zian Fleming was playing for a team in the Dutch league that obviously were struggling. A lot of cup finals when you're at the bottom of the league because you have to be picking up points to stay in your division. But he didn't come over to the Championship to be playing against Wigan and Bristol City in games where the crowd's 10,000 at the Den. He come to be playing in the big games, in the games that are going to affect whether we make the top 6 or not. He and other players should be relishing those big games coming up.
Definitely. A great point there. Many changes for Saturday, what do you reckon? Obviously, not many players to choose from. I've not heard much about Cooper and his injury because obviously he went off last Saturday. I don't know if I missed anything this week. Have you boys seen anything on that? Nothing? Or
there was a quick quote that
to say I don't know many changes. You make any changes?
Yeah.
There was a little quote that said that Cooper's injury wasn't as bad or as feared as initial having to take him off. So
and Cooper's track records, you probably play, won't he? I imagine then, won't he? Okay,
the only change I think George Saville has to come back into the starting lineup. I think I might have mentioned this before, and I'm sure Ben will have a little chuckle at this. I'm a little bit of a George Saville fan club. One-man fan club or two-man fan club. Then Omar,
here we go.
We can fly that flag because I think he has to play. He has to play in the team. I'd be getting him straight back in the 11. We've got no Bury, so width is again a little bit of a much of a much. Who's going to play there? But I'd like to see again. I don't think Rowett's quite brave enough to do it, but I would love to see Romain Esse been rewarded and first professional contract. He must be on an absolute high. He made the point of adding into his tweet thanking the club and whatnot. He's been there since he was 9 years old, so he must be absolutely delighted. Get him in the first, get him in. And what's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work out, you can take him off. It's not a home game where there might be the pressure of the supporters on him to start. But for me, if there is going to be any changes, Saville must start.
Definitely, I think I agree with you there. I think also I even loved. I think the club put a little snippet on Instagram of Esse's interview, and he ended with "Come on, you Lions!" Like just little bits like that, and it's like I think he's buzzing for it, and he's buzzing to be here. So I definitely agree with that. What about you, Ben? Many changes? I mean, could it even be an argument again? Like, has he got the balls to play? Esse, could a back three come back into play on Saturday? Something like that. I mean, I don't even want to say the dreaded words, but like think about it. You got Creswell available, 3 centre halves potentially. We ain't got many wingers available, so maybe it's a 2 up top job of Bradshaw and Voggy with Fleming behind. You never know.
This is what I was about to say. We might be soon getting to the point that we're going to have to go down a formation change because we're not going to have the players to be able to support the formation that we're currently playing. I don't have anything against Saville coming in. I think he's actually done well this year. I'm not a anti-Saville fan by any means. I'm probably more of a Saville fan than not. So. If Sav comes back in, I've got no problem with that at all. Outside of that, can we make many changes? I'm not sure. It'd be great to see the young lad get, as you say, Stephen, get his reward for signing that long-term deal. I don't think Rowett will ever have the balls to do it personally. I don't think outside of that we can make many changes. I know we spoke about it earlier, we had a bit of a laugh, but I'm not against Voggy playing down the middle. If we do go to a 5-3-2, 3-5-2, whatever it is, and play up top with Bradders, I don't mind seeing that. Cue the abuse we're going to get on Twitter now for saying that. I've got no problem with seeing Voggy given a chance down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I'll sum up then. I guess we're thinking the back four the same, goalkeeper the same. Styles out for Saville. Maybe Styles playing instead of Honeyman in a wide position potentially. I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
This after the Preston game, and I'm still amazed with trying it with Honeyman. He's not a wide player. He's not a wide player. Can we stop with that, please, Rout? If you ever listen to this podcast, please stop playing him wide. He's not a wide player. I know you're a manager of the Championship club, but I've done a lot on Football Manager. Right, he's not a wide. he's just not a wide player.
I don't think he's been. I think he's been very ineffective, but he's not been terrible in that position. I mean, in the sense of he's not done anything in the wide area as a winger should, but he's not been like.
I just think he hinders us more by playing wide. I don't mind him. I think he's a little player, and we talk about that all the time. I don't mind him. I just don't. I'd rather him play in that midfield too, to be honest, and give us a bit of depth there than play. He's got no pace. He's got no tricks. Do you know what I mean? He's just a solid player, and I don't think he adds anything to us playing.
It's a bit like if you played Murray Wallace on left wing, like you'd probably get the similar sort of output, wouldn't you? Like
you're going to get 6 or 7 out of 10. You're not going to get anything more than that. He's not going to win you a game type player. Is how I feel. George Honeyman. I might be a bit harsh towards him, but
one other change actually. I would be looking at perhaps giving Scott Malone a go if he's fit at left back. I think Murray Wallace has been getting absolute pelters the last couple of games. He's been, the fans have not. I want to say they've turned on him, but there's certainly, he's finding his level. He's struggling. There's been a lot of comments. The goal on Saturday, people were very critical of him. Perhaps take him maybe a little bit out of the firing line, or push him to if you are going to go to the 3 at the back, maybe push him as the 3rd centre back and get him in maybe a more natural position and get Malone or Styles out on the left hand side. But I mean, no, if Murray Wallace plays, there's no issue really. But perhaps maybe if Malone's fit, just give Wallace a little bit of a break, get him out the firing line.
Is there an argument? Is there an argument to push Styles to left back? I'm assuming Cardiff, given Morrison was in charge and has kind of built this squad, that they're going to be quite direct and not a possession hungry side. Would there be an argument to get Styles out at full back and be a little bit more attacking?
The Malone one's a weird one, though, isn't it? Right, because he's disappeared from the squads, and when you look online, there's not too much murmured about him, is there? Or his nature of his injury, right?
I had a look on the Flash Score previews earlier.
Illness, right?
Injured, so I don't know.
It says illness when I look at it on Flash Score as well, or I think I've got Flash Score. But yeah, it's an interesting one there. But I do think if anyone deserves not a break, as in like a sense of he continues to play, his performance is poor, he's going to come out the side. But if anyone's going to play his way out of it, I think Murray Wallace is the character that can do that. I hope. He has been poor, but hopefully he plays his way out of it. But I do agree. I do take your point completely, to be fair, though, Stephen. I would, if Malone was available. But then Malone is also flat to deceive a bit, I feel like.
Look, I think if you could combine Murray Wallace and Scott Malone together, you'd have quite a decent fullback with a bit of pace, someone who can go forward and obviously really good in defence. Probably wouldn't be a Millwall player. Yeah. But I think, Malone's delivery and Malone's output. I mean, that season he was on loan. He scored 4 goal of the season contenders on his own. Yeah. So the attacking outlet is there. And if Cardiff aren't really a possession-based side and a team that might be a little bit slower or a little bit direct, you might want someone out there. Callum Styles, as Ben said, is another one that you could put out there to try and get forward. But I think Rowett's very reactive rather than proactive. Mm-hmm. And I think the game Saturday is a game where we've got to go into it proactive. Maybe try something a little bit different. Maybe go with a 3 at the back. Again, get pelters on Twitter after this. Yeah, the title of the show is going to be panelists say play 3 at the back, and we'll get absolutely hounded.
Oh, get some clicks, won't it?
But
you'll get taken off air, right?
It might be a game because look, no one was against changing the formation, but that doesn't mean that Rowett has to stick to 4-2-3-1 now. I don't mind him in games trying things and changing things, and if you haven't got the players available, maybe look at your squad and play to your squad strengths rather than kind of what you want to do.
Yeah, no, agreed, and that's what I think. You never know. Rowett, he never struck me as a tinkerer, but you never know. Could be something there in the murmurings. Who knows? I am going to call this show 352 Saturday ? I think it's got legs for that one. We'll wrap up then. I guess we'll do the typical thing of asking what's the score going to be on Saturday, Ben?
I'm going to be optimistic.
You're going to say 0-0. You're going to say 0-0. I get on with
I'm going to say 2-0 win Millwall. And I'm going to say Fleming to get a brace.
Oh. And then he goes to the end of the window for 12 mil.
£10 million, yeah.
Yeah. Stephen, what do you reckon Saturday, mate? Score prediction for me.
I did the little video on the last show for Mickey. Yeah. I said 2-0. Fleming and Bradshaw getting a goal in his country. Well, it's not his country of birth, is it? It's probably one of these. It's Nan that might get him to qualify for Wales. But he might have a point to prove going back to Wales. So, yeah, 2-0 Millwall. Bradshaw and Fleming on the score sheet for me.
I can't remember what I said for mine. I feel like I went 0-0 for a joke.
Oh, God.
Because I think in my head, because I'm going up there as well. I just got this feeling it's going to be a 0-0. It's going to be 0-0.
When you lose your Vogie bet as well.
Look, listen, I'm more than happy. For Joe. I'm more than happy for Joe to win the bet if Millwall win the game. But I can assure you, if Vogie scores on Saturday, I'm going to hammer his Twitter. I'm going to absolutely cane him for it. So, but yeah.
Well, fair enough. I mean, anything else you two want to add up? I mean, Ben, thanks always for coming tonight, mate. And yeah, it's been first time with you, but a great show, mate.
Yeah, and just touching upon something Stephen said, we do like to get a bit downbeat. Again, looking at the preview on Flash Score, we got more points than we did this time last year. We're a second half of the season team. We always do well towards the end of the year. So if that's anything to go by, that's a positive. Isn't all doom and gloom. We've had a decent year so far. It's a tight league. If we can make 2 additions, I'll say, to the squad in the right areas, I still think we'll be knocking on the door for the top 6. So, yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. There is some positives to be taken from all of our negativity tonight.
Well said. Stephen, Bipolar Millwall striking again, obviously, for us, Bipolar Millwall fans as well. I mean, thanks for being on, mate. Any last words to end up the show?
As Ben said, I think it's been quite negative. But for me, to end on a positive, I did touch on it earlier. Remain Esse, saying at the club, young player that's come in that looks a little bit of promise. It's nice that we don't have the worry of, is he going to stay? Is he going to sign? Are we going to lose him? If someone wants him now, they're going to obviously have to pay for him. So hopefully he seems like a decent guy. He seems like someone who's obviously quite fond of the club. So whilst it's not a new signing, I think it's very good that the club have tied down a young prospect for a long time. So hopefully that can be the kickstart to some transfer activity.
Fingers crossed. What's the odds on Romanese any time on Saturday?
I'll check it after.
There you go. Well, thanks both. Go on, Ben.
To Vogie as Vogie to score.
I'm waiting to get it on Vogie to score and Millwall to win. So it's not been updated yet. So I'm gonna look for that. But look, as I say, if Joe wins the bet, he can pick what charity he goes to. If I win the bet, I'm gonna absolutely cane him all over social media all weekend. So
can it go in our transfer budget?
Yeah,
sure, fine. Well, we need all the money we can get, don't we?
Anyway, cheers, chaps. Great show. And thanks for tuning in, listening, listeners. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and come on, Millwall. 3 points Saturday. Cheers, chaps.